Bartholomew Town, bringing Rhode Islanders closer to their world since 2018. Brought to you in part by the University of Rhode Island Online, Newport Film, Half Street Group, Navigant Credit Union, and the Audubon Society of Rhode Island.
Bartholomew Town.
Hey, everybody. All right. No King's Day here in Providence, Rhode Island, and across the state in Rhode Island. I've been hearing from so many listeners who have been sending me footage, photos, kind of reports from all over the place, whether it's Block Island, Westerly, down in Middletown, the Newport County contingent, Warren, where reportedly a couple hundred people turned out. I myself just returning from both protests that took place in Providence, and literally thousands and thousands of Rhode Islanders out in the streets today protesting, frankly, against Donald Trump. And I got to tell you, let me break it down into a couple of different categories here. First of all, if you were there today, great to see some of you out there. Great to have some conversations. It was nice to meet some of you. It was great to see some old friends. Really good energy, right? Really positive energy. And I want to start right there. This was definitely a positive event in terms of community. And whether you're talking about the people who organized both the State House protest and the one down at India Point Park, whether you're talking about the people who turned up, obviously, even, quite frankly, the police, particularly the Rhode Island State Police, they did a good job of allowing this thing to happen uninhibited. And I saw state police and organizers of at least the State House rally communicating with regularity. The State House rally, when I got there, it was just afternoon. It was a noon start time, and there were already literally thousands of people there. My minimum estimation would be 2,500. And you saw, I mean, I'm telling you, I was up on the steps of the State House looking out. And this is on the back end. There was another event scheduled for the front side. So this was actually on the back side of the State House. The Esplanade completely covered with people. That spilled out onto the street. That went across the street out by the Department of Administration building onto that sidewalk all over the place. You couldn't help but see fellow human beings. And when I was on the ground, I was speaking with a lot of people who were attending the rally. There was a common thread, a common theme that I heard over and over again, which is that it's just nice to feel like you've got allies and you're not out of your mind as you observe the state of affairs in this country and frankly the world. But I think today it's important to compartmentalize things to a certain extent. Today was about Donald Trump. Today was about the state of the United States. And people came out with all kinds of creative signs. I mean, the signs, the images, you can find them all across social media. Follow me on Instagram, X, Blue Sky, YouTube, TikTok, whatever. Just type in Bill Bartholomew or Bartholomew Town and you'll find it. And I've got tons of photos that I took myself, tons of video. Our contributors flanked out across the state. They were providing me with photos and video from Newport, wherever. So this was definitely thematically a community event where you had a lot of people saying, hey, wait a second, I don't feel alone in my disgust, in my sorrow, in my disappointment, in my fear. And that was the resonating theme. One person told me that it was nice to be in a large crowd of people and basically be able to assume that you're not in a crowd of people with racist, xenophobic, pro-fascist, pro-authoritarian like people. I mean, that's like on a basic level. So here's the thing. This is a Saturday afternoon. You got the State House. Thousands of people there. That turned into a march. Again, super organized, no civil disobedience whatsoever. There were little kids out there. There were older adults. Just about every demographic category you can think of was involved in this thing. And I hate to use the word or term family friendly, but it felt like this is a family friendly type of protest, type of event. It was hardly the type of thing that you would feel like, hey, we need an escape plan or somehow this is going to devolve into a riot or anything like that. I mean, please. So for all the fear mongering and for all of the garbage that we heard spewed about this and other events, the State House and India Point and all of the other events taking place throughout the state of Rhode Island, Block Island, Westerly, Warren, Newport, all of that. The common theme was community, family friendly, and expression of dismay and displeasure with the current state of affairs in the United States. Simple, leave it right there. Now, I went from the State House where I spent a couple hours, something like that, Again, talking with people. I didn't really interview people. I didn't want to do the whole, hey, stand here, interview, grab a random person, let's see what their take is. I wanted to get a collective flavor. And then I could report back to you, which is what I'm doing right now, on what I heard. So I made my way from the State House down to India Point Park. Now, there were two locations in Providence. I don't know exactly why this was the case. It could be because you had, here in the state, we do have an issue where we've got left organizations, be it liberal, far left, if they want to call it that, or leftist, anarchist, DSA, PSL, whatever. But there sometimes are disagreements about how to best proceed, or who to invite, or who should speak, or who should do this, or who should get the credit. Again, I don't know that that's why there were two separate rallies a mile apart from each other in Providence. It does seem to me like it would have been better to have one centralized rally where everybody is. Now, having said that, the State House and the surrounding area being so packed, maybe there's a logistical concern there that, hey, you want to give people maximum exposure so they're not literally standing, at the Providence Place Mall looking back up at the State House or something. But very few, in fact, I didn't see any elected officials at the State House. I was really trying to find somebody, again, not to interview, not to turn this into content, but I just wanted to get a flavor. Hey, did the governor show up? What about the lieutenant governor? Where's she? Nowhere to be found. I went down to India Point Park after a couple hours at the State House. When I got there, saw Senator Reid, spoke with Senator Reid for a couple of minutes. He was going to give a speech at the India Point rally. I saw Representative David Morales. I saw Patrick Crowley from the AFL-CIO. Several other, you want to call them mover and shaker, you want to call them politicos, you want to call them activist organization people, whatever. They were more so down there at India Point, and neither one felt like the main event. India Point seemed to have a little bit less attendance, but again, it had some of those more institutional speakers. So I don't know. I don't know the details. There were two rallies. That's all I know. And they both had that same theme. And again, speaking with people on the ground, consistent message of, hey, wait a second. The reality is what's happening right now is completely and utterly unacceptable. Now, here's the thing. A rally like today, it's good. Does it rattle Donald Trump's cage? I doubt it. I doubt it does anything to the MAGA world in terms of making them go, oh, geez, do we need to readjust our thinking here because there's people gathering in state capitals or states in small towns and whatever all across the country. I'm sure that they're not going to go back into the war room tonight and sit there and think, geez, we got to make some adjustments because of No King's Day. But it does send a message, again, to other like-minded people that there's a coalition. It's not just Democrats, all right? Some of the people, I see responses when I post things, particularly on X, the platform formerly known as Twitter, and just some of the dumbest stuff you'd ever seen in your life. I don't. Sometimes I wonder why I'm still on there. I like to get out of the echo chamber and communicate in environments that aren't necessarily the friendliest, which is also why I really enjoy talk radio, because while it's Rhode Island, you got a lot of liberal and moderate and sort of clear-headed thinking. You also get a lot of morons to call up with conspiracy theories, this kind of garbage. But what we saw today, you cannot put that into that same category of you want to make a comment. If you're on the Trump side, you want to sit there and make a comment about some of the things you see at some of the rallies with respect to taking it to the level of violence or anything like that. Okay, but you can't do that from today. Today was anything but that. Today was simply a day for people to come together in community and say, we don't accept what's happening, plain and simple. We don't want that in our families. We don't want that in our communities. We don't want that in our states. We don't want that in our country. We don't want that on this planet. That's what happened today. And I'm curious to see, as I've glanced at, haven't had a ton of time because of the limitation of being out in the rain. By the way, it was raining. Didn't inhibit too many people from coming out. It wasn't a downpour. It certainly wasn't the hurricane of the century, but it was definitely raining. It was definitely a little bit chilly out there. Parking was scarce, and you still had that big turnout. So I haven't had a chance to look around and say, okay, well, how was it in, I'm not even talking about New York or anything like that. How was it in, Framingham, Massachusetts, or what was going on in, Chattanooga, Tennessee? We'll see that over time. But you get the sense, just from a cursory look at social media, that this thing resonated around the country and that there's definitely a coalition forming. When I got to India Point Park, I know I'm all over the place here, folks. I literally just took my raincoat off, came into the studio, sat down. I was like, I want to get this out while it's still fresh. I don't want to sit down and think about it and all that business. I'm walking in the door from nearly 3 hours out in the rain covering this event. And I wanted to come right to you with stream of conscious thoughts and reporting back to you on what I saw. Because, by the way, when I cover events, there's a great reporter from the now late WCBS in New York, my favorite news radio station ever, the best. It went off the air last year. Very disappointed, went off the air, whatever. Rich Lamb, great reporter there. I once heard him describe his recommendation for reporting to young reporters. Rich Lamb, he said, tell them what you see. Simple as that. And I'm telling you what I saw. And with that comes the filtration of the human being that I am. And of course, I have an opinion because all reporters, all journalists are going to have an opinion. My opinion is that today was a positive event. Some people might say, well, that's inserting your own lens into the matter. Well, yeah, that's what I'm doing. I'm using my lens to tell you what I saw. When I got to India Point, though, there was a guy standing there in a Trump hat. I'm thinking, what the hell is this, man? Come on, by yourself? And so I went up to him and said, what are you, the sole opposition here? Very interesting conversation. Yeah, he's wearing the Trump hat. And he says, I voted for Trump. I don't support the Democrats. However, I'm extremely concerned about what's happening, about what I see as authoritarianism. And this is not what I voted for. Now, you can make the argument, and you probably should make the argument, that if you voted Trump, how could you possibly be surprised about what we're seeing? This is not a shock to anybody who has paid attention to what's happened with the growth of the MAGA movement. This is the natural, let's hope, conclusion, but certainly the pathway. But an interesting discussion to have with somebody who was down there in the MAGA hat on the periphery of that India Point protest and offering that take of, geez, you know what? I did not vote for this. I hate to say it, but this is not what I wanted. I'm thinking, why are you wearing the hat? You're just being a provocateur. But you know what? Sometimes that sparks discussion and dialogue. I never would have talked to this guy. I would have picked him out of the thousands of people to have a conversation with. So fascinating. I wonder how many other people there on the ground today voted Trump, perhaps even still identify as Republican, but are horrified by what's happening because they're out there. That's one thing I've learned from being on the radio, from being on talk radio on WPRO, weekdays 3 to 6 with Dan York, is that we get people, and they oftentimes don't go on the air. I answer the phone as part of my wide array of responsibilities in preparing for producing, executing, chiming in on the mic, and guest hosting the show. I also answer the phone. I mean, that's a product of the consolidation of the media business. There used to be a kid that would sit there and answer the phone and put the callers up. Now I have to do that amongst a million other things. So I'll get people who call up and they'll say, hey, Billy, hey, I'm listening right now and I don't want to go on the air, but I just want to let you know, yeah, I voted for Donald Trump, but I never expected this. I never expected to see, authoritarianism, fascism unfolding. So keep up the good fight. Those people are out there. They're in our community, and they may have been there today. I'd be curious to know how many there were. So that's Providence. Again, our reporter on the ground in Newport, Tom Berglund, you can see his videos on his Instagram or just go to mine and it'll direct you to his. Big turnout in Newport. And he noted to me as we're exchanging messages, just remember or at least report out to the audience that this isn't like a tourist situation in Newport. These are actually, these are actually people who are, year-round residents of Newport. I mean, that's just the reality. So you have this statewide energy happening. And here's the big question. Now what? We had the ICE protest earlier this week, the PSL organized. That was downtown. Again, a rally, a march, pretty organized, no confrontations, no nothing. Very simple entry-level type of stuff, important, peaceful organizing. Same thing today. But I always worry in these situations about echo chamber syndrome.
Bartholomew Town.
Are you ready to take the next step in your career? At URI Online, they offer business and leadership-focused programs designed to fit your life. Whether your goal is to advance your career in fields like public administration, supply chain management, or training and development, their online programs provide the flexibility you need with a high-quality education you deserve. Learn more from experienced faculty and collaborate with a network of professionals, all from the comfort of your home or wherever life takes you. Visit uri.edu/online to explore programs and start building your future today. URI Online. Learn anywhere with us. Birds are disappearing from our landscape at a rapid pace. Over 1/3 of those breeding on Audubon Society of Rhode Island's wildlife refuges are in decline. Climate change has taken a toll on their migration, nesting, and food sources. While science is highlighting the problem, Audubon is working on real solutions with a plan to rapidly reduce their carbon emissions. The organization will be free of fossil fuels by 2030, with renewable energy powering Audubon's buildings, equipment, and vehicles. To shape our future, all of us must act. Learn more about Repowering Audubon, their avian research, and how you can join their fight for climate resiliency. Visit asri.org/repower. Newport Film screens the latest critically acclaimed documentary films year-round across Rhode Island. Like a film festival, Newport Film often gets early access to films before they're available online or in theaters. Stay up to date on their latest screening events at newportfilm.com or on Instagram at newportfilm. As Rhode Island's first ever member-owned credit union, Navigant Credit Union has been a staple in the local business community for more than 108 years. Yeah. Today, Navigant is a $3.4 billion institution serving more than 136,000 members across 25 physical branch locations. But since its founding in 1915, the mission has never changed. Navigant Credit Union's team of financial professionals have remained committed to improving the financial well-being of the families, businesses, and communities they serve across Rhode Island. Learn more at navigantcu.org. Half Street Group brings a new generation's perspective to leadership communications, strategic public relations, and digital marketing. Half Street helps organizations and leaders take control of their own stories and manage their reputations. They get results for their clients by focusing on audience, message, and culture, and by leveraging their decade-long relationship with media and opinion leaders in the Ocean State and throughout New England. Join me and Half Street Group founder and president Mike Rea for a conversation every month about news of the day, the hottest media analysis, and a look behind the scenes at how impactful leaders drive conversations. Learn more at halfstreetgroup.com.
I think that in these types of situations, we can find ourselves a little bit stuck on thinking, hey, everything's going to be okay. There's not going to be any problems in the world because of the simple fact that there was a big crowd today, or there were a lot of people downtown at the anti-ICE rally. But there's so much more work to do. This is only the beginning. And protests and demonstrations and rallies, whether they're local or national or anything like that, they play a major part in moving and shaping public opinion, but they're definitely not the end all be all. And we have to be comfortable with the idea that if this thing, as in the Trump brand, the MAGA movement, everything that's going with it, and when I say everything, what am I talking about? I'm talking about the rise of authoritarianism, the deployment of the military in Los Angeles and who knows where else, okay? The deportation and degradation of immigrants by and large, because this isn't just about undocumented immigrants, folks. This is about anybody who is not a white person in this country right now. This is a broad-based challenge, no doubt about it. But that's where we are at this moment. What comes next? What does the individual level of action look like? What does the collective level of action look like? It might look like more and more and more rallies and protests and so on and so forth. And that could be a part of it, but there's got to be more as well. Folks, let's be clear about where we're at right now. And this goes beyond the Trump deal. Okay, when we observe on a macro level what's happening in the world, I mean, I don't think we're heading to World War III this year or next year or anything like that. But I've said it time and time again. World War III is going to be both international and intranational. And the seeds have been planted for exactly that. What's happening on an international basis is pretty obvious. What's happening Israel, Gaza, And everything that goes into that conversation is, I mean, it's a complete disgrace and it's completely outrageous. Now we've got Israel, Iran, and that's a broad-based challenge that there may be some measured restraint that goes into this episode, even though it's now devolved into a second day. But there may not be. This may turn into a regional war. Obviously, Russia, Ukraine. Obviously, when we look at China, Taiwan, India, Pakistan, when we look at South America, and by and large, South America is more of a less nationalistic discussion right now and more of a political party, political identification, factional breakdown. All of that's happening in real time as we speak, right? Take a look at what's happening in the markets. Take a look at what's happening on a broad-based macroeconomic level. And then here in this country, couldn't be more obvious. Here we go. We've got this military parade, that birthday party that Donald Trump is throwing for himself, where they've got a bunch of outdated equipment parading through the streets, because a military parade in 2025 would be a bunch of drones and robots on display. So you've got this strongman message of, hey, let's put a bunch of metal products on the street with troops. This is a signal to both the world, and it's a signal to the United States' population to say, stay in line, don't get out of line, because if you do, we got tanks that can run you over. We got people and equipment that can come in and kick your ass, and they will, and you'll go to jail. And guess what? We've already shown you that jail could be Guantanamo Bay. That jail could be in El Salvador. It could be on the freaking moon before we're done here. They want to suppress dissidents. They want to suppress journalists. Obviously, you take a look at what's happening with Harvard. Couldn't be more obvious. They want to suppress knowledge. They have no interest in knowledge, in dissent, anything like that. And so these seeds are being sowed of people who are going, whoa, 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 what are you doing? What are you talking? What are you, insane? You want to literally take that which makes not only this country, but this species great, and you want to destroy it and replace it with this fascist mentality of by the way, dumb ideas. Because there was a time where you could sit there and say, oh, geez, well, what is Trump talking about here? Can we compare and contrast? That's long. That's a decade over. I mean, it was barely there to begin with. I'm not saying I personally was buying into it, but at least there was some level of, I don't know what's going on here. Is he some kind of drain the swamp outsider? Is he kind of like Ron Paul on steroids or something like that? Not the case now. Couldn't be more obvious. So they're planting those seeds for unrest here. And I don't mean, look, I think this country's too lazy to get into a civil war in the streets of, St. Louis or something like that. I mean, come on, let's be honest about it. But on an emotional level and on an intellectual level, there's a real effort to divide and conquer here. So what comes next? The pressure needs to be on the people who are in Congress so that they can act. What we're seeing out of Congress is wholly unimpressive by and large. I mean, sure, you get an example here and there of a person who's standing up. I understand Senator Padilla. That was, I don't know if you want to call it impressive. It was pretty much an unfortunate event, but it happened. At least the guy put in some effort to show up and say, hey, wait a minute, I'm going to step in here and voice concern. But it's going to come down to Congress. And by the way, the media cannot be complicit in this transformation of the United States and still call themselves journalists. People come after me, oh, Bartholomew, he's no journalist, he's got an opinion. Yeah, every journalist has an opinion. It's not AI, and even AI has got an opinion. So let's knock it off with that garbage. It's not, Edward R. Murrow is not coming across your radio speakers or Walter Cronkite is not coming on the television tonight to give it to you straight. So that ruse is over, long over. So why are we allowing for, and this includes locals, the media has to be aggressive and do their job and tell people what they see. And unless they're looking at something entirely different than I am, and probably most of you who are listening to my voice right now, it makes no sense that we're not getting a full speed resistance from media on an intellectual level, on a pop level, all across the board. No sense whatsoever. We got to see it. We got to see it from Congress, the media, obviously the judiciary. And at the state level, I mean, geez, what is going on here? Where are they? And don't give me all of the bridge. We need the money for the bridge. You know what? Forget the bridge then. We'll just keep driving the way it is. If it comes down to tolerating fascism or getting a couple of bucks for the Washington Bridge, you know what? Use your head. I'm tired of seeing a complacency about what's happening on a statewide, the national basis, global basis, and on a statewide basis in this community. I want to see, you know what? I want to see people out front, not in a tie, not in a dress. I want to see you dressed, ready to go, ready to march, ready to get involved right here, right now, because it's a moment where that is required. It is not optional. It's not a campaign-related thing. It's not even a governance-related thing. It's a constitutional, fundamental belief in the United States thing. And we're simply not getting it. We need to turn up the heat in the kitchen big time from the elected officials here in Rhode Island. They got to do it. And if they don't do it, it's time for new people. I'm sorry. This one issue, they want to make this 2026 election about the Washington Bridge. Fine. The Washington Bridge is a complete disaster. It's a complete joke. We all know that. If you sit in traffic, it's a total joke. Fine. And that's a big problem. The bigger issue, though, is where do you stand on the state of the world right now? Where do you stand on the behavior of and the actions of Donald Trump? Give it to me direct. You can give me that answer in less than 5 seconds. That should be the litmus test in states across the country. And sure, there are places where Donald Trump has wide support. But just like I told you, I spoke with a kid in the MAGA hat today down at India Point Park. That support is waning, not only on an institutional level, in terms of his cabinet or in terms of people who are, classical Republicans. Now you got Rand Paul. He's out. The country club disinvited from the White House picnic. Those people are out there. They need to be a part of a coalition that includes all of us, leftists, liberals, centrists, independents, elected, media, and you know what? Disillusioned Republicans who have had enough of this garbage and are saying, well, wait a second, this is not what I voted for. We have to be able to, at least at some level, accept some of these people into the coalition because we need them to confront the reality that we're facing right now, which don't let anybody tell you on some talk show or whatever other place that you're getting it from that this is anything less than a fascist takeover of the United States, because it is. And it needs to be met with that kind of language and that kind of aggression, because that's the level of aggression at minimum that they're using. So you look at No King's Day today across the country, and particularly here in Rhode Island, and where I was in the 2 locations in Providence, it was alive. It's a vital moment, and it's a time for people to say, you know what, let's build a coalition and everybody do your part to stabilize the situation. You may not be able to, on an individual basis or even on a collective basis with thousands of people, make a change to the policy and procedures of the MAGA movement. And Donald Trump, this whole nonsense with California and the National Guard and now the Marines, this may be some kind of test case where you can declare an emergency because we got a hostile takeover of, migrants or something, whatever he wants to come up with. They may come up with that and use that as a litmus test to gauge whether or not they will be able to pull this off to suspend elections in 2026 on the grounds of some kind of national emergency. Don't think for a second that that's not part of the plan here, because I guarantee it is. This is a ruthless, lawless, completely out of control administration. And there are more and more people who are realizing that. And that's why it's more and more important than ever before that we break out of the echo chamber. Last thing I want to say about this, because it's Saturday afternoon, got music tonight, got a lot going on. A couple of people have been asking me every time I go out what my thoughts are, again, on seeking elected office, particularly am I going to run for lieutenant governor? So I'm going to tell you right now where it's at. We're thinking about this. All right, we're thinking about it. It's the same thing I told McGowan. We're definitely considering it. I can guarantee you that if we get into this thing, it's not going to look like any campaign that's ever happened in Rhode Island before. It's definitely not going to look like a lieutenant governor's campaign that's happened in Rhode Island before or is happening right now. People have asked if that's the only office we're looking at. It pretty much is. But it's not because we want to get into parades or walk around at the State House and say, hi, I'm the lieutenant governor. Well, who are you? It's because the type of energy that we're seeing on the streets today in Providence, in Westerly, in Warren, in Newport, all around on Block Island, everywhere that the No Kings protest is taking place in this state, frankly, across the country, that's the kind of energy we need at our State House from our leadership. Okay, that's the kind of energy. I'm not saying you spend your whole day protesting either. I'm just telling you from the insertion of energy standpoint, that's where it needs to be. I didn't see Sabina Montos out there today. I'm not saying she wasn't there. I did not see her, though. And I was at the first location for a couple of hours, the second location for quite a while. I was on the stage in both locations amongst the speakers. So I want to know where they stand on this kind of stuff. Now, they can get up there and say, yeah, Donald Trump's horrible and this and that and the other, but what are you doing to not only on a policy level introduce concepts that might be able to address this? What are you doing on an emotional level? What are you doing to harness energy and build coalitions of people who say, we don't want this, we're done with this? Because they're out there in droves. And if thousands and thousands of people showed up at the State House, India Point Park, out in Middletown, Newport, down in Westerly, out on Block Island, out in Warren, and wherever else in this state and all around this country today, and in that case, probably hundreds of thousands of people, if not millions of people showed up, if you're looking at it on a national level, if they're out there, then you are either with them or against them. There is no middle ground in this situation, and we need to fully understand that. We cannot proceed with the notion that there's room for anything other than fully understanding the positions and the energy and the emotional angle that our elected officials are taking on the issue of Donald Trump and this authoritarian movement that is underway in this country. And if you don't think it is, and some of these clowns, you want to come after me, you want to send me the emails, somehow you got my phone somewhere, you want to start texting me garbage, which some of these people do, you want to blast me on Twitter, keep doing it. Keep doing it. I feel for you because I think deep down you know that this is wrong. And once you're able to shake that jingoism, once you're able to shake that home team advantage mentality and start looking towards the future and start looking at things, we haven't even had a chance to discuss things like climate resiliency, like preparation for AGI, like understanding the reality of the industries of the future and how Rhode Island is going to play into those. And there's so much to talk about that I want to be talking about here on Bartholomew Town and in general. And we're bogged down in both these moments of national chaos and trying to, basically it's like when you have a building flooding and you've got a couple of buckets and you're just taking water and trying to throw the water, to grab the bucket, put the water, to throw it out the window and hope just to keep yourself from drowning. That's how I feel we are operating in this state right now, on housing, on transit, on healthcare, on education. And we don't have time to go deep because we're focusing so much, and by the way, correctly so, on the national picture. So we haven't had an opportunity to go to that next level of depth and understanding. We need to be able to clean up this mess so we can start focusing on building a real future. One that's beautiful, optimistic, opportunistic. We are simply not doing that right now, and it needs to change. And where does it start? It starts at the grassroots level. It starts at the community level, and we're seeing that true out today with No King's Day. So to the handful of detractors that, again, I don't know how people get my phone number, but whatever. I'm not going to change my phone number. Some of these people have got my phone number. Okay. You want to tell me I'm a moron? You want to tell me that I'm, I don't know what I'm doing because, you don't realize that the immigrants are here to teach. When you make the comments, by the way, some of these people, when you make a comment on the immigration issue, it's not only you sound like a complete fool. Not only do you sound like you're delusional and completely unhinged, and you basically drank the Kool-Aid of propaganda that they've put out there for you, but you're also, yes, I'm a white Rhode Island boy, super privileged, all of that. No doubt about it. Fully accept it, fully acknowledge it. Try to put myself, if there's a resistance situation going on, I know that I should be out in front of those situations because of the fact that I have that by birth advantage, and that manifests in other ways too. I get that. But guess what? I'm going to tell you right now, you're coming after my family. All right? You're coming after me personally. You're coming after the people that I love by and large. Some of the people I love the most in this world when you make those kinds of comments. So you know what? You're getting to me personally. And I think some of these people actually know that and some of them don't. But some of the things that I've heard on the immigration matter, on the Trump stuff, whatever it is, are some of the most disgusting comments. And you know that they're there below the surface and sometimes above the surface. We know this is out there, this kind of garbage. But it has gotten awful. And you want to attack me personally? Come after me. Make fun of my overalls. You want to put up the picture from 15 years ago of me wearing pink overalls with a ponytail. Ha, ha, ha. Isn't that so funny? The guy was a performer, an indie performer performing on stage, but let's make fun of him for wearing pink overalls. You want to do that? Fine. You want to come after my political positions. You want to come after some commentary I've made. Absolutely fair game. Feel free to do it, and I'll engage you anytime you'd like. You want to come after, family and close friends, the people I love. You want to come after my community. You want to come after Rhode Islanders. Shame on you. Shame on all that. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. Look, we got a wide audience here in Bartholomew Town. That's a grassroots thing. This show started in 2018. It's just been a snowball since then. I haven't spent a dime on promotion, by the way. It's just been word of mouth, people sharing things, people getting on board. We got a lot of people who listen to this thing. I feel like it's a community at this point. It's been that way for a while. And I value the people who email me and call me with, even if you attack me, again, you say, hey, geez, well, I heard what you said on Bartholomew Town. I think you're crazy because of X, Y, Z. All right, fine, do it. Let's have that conversation. I'm all about it. I love the dialogue that we get into with people who want to have a respectful dialogue, whether you agree or disagree. But this state needs to be a practicing ground and action-oriented central piece of a national resistance conversation. Resistance, you get a little bit over the top and all that. And I understand there's different layers to this. People are critical of this protest today because it didn't talk enough about what's happening, or at all, other than a few people, about what's happening on a global basis. But here's my argument to that. We want to solve what's happening. It's the same thing I was telling people back in the election year for president. Biden, we all know, and we all know what happened in Gaza and what's happening in Gaza. But we all know I'm talking about the context of the presidential. People say, well, I'm not voting for Biden. Vote for Trump. It can't be any worse. Guess what? It's way worse. So if we want to reset the dialogue and actually start to build a better world on humanitarian issues, on anything of that sort, we got to get out of the moment of populist authoritarianism and get back to something like what we grew up with in the 90s and 2000s. Imperfect as it is, problematic as it obviously is. We need to get to there so that we can start the conversation about resetting and building for a better future. No King's Day, at least in Providence, from what I saw, both locations, State House and India Point Park, gave me a lot of hope that we're going to get there. I'm Bill Bartholomew. This is Bartholomew Town. Remember, you can follow me on Instagram, X, at least for now, Blue Sky, YouTube, TikTok, all across social media. Just search at Bill Bartholomew or type in Bartholomew Town. Tell a friend, by the way, as well about the show. And we always thank our supporters who have been there for us on patreon.com/Bartholomew Town. For a couple of bucks a month, you can support this show. And that goes right into the infrastructure that helps to keep this thing moving. Also want to thank our sponsors, the University of Rhode Island Online, the Audubon Society of Rhode Island, Half Street Group, Navigant Credit Union, and Newport Film. Greatly appreciate our community partners because you also allow us to function in a way that we can have the organizational efforts that we do. Nobody's getting rich off Bartholomew Town. I can guarantee you that. This is a community-oriented project. And when you see something like we saw today down at the No Kings Day protest, brings a lot of positive energy. It's not easy. I know it, folks. It's a tough time, man. It's a real tough time. There's a lot of reasons right now to be fearful. There's a lot of reasons right now to be resentful. There's a lot of reasons right now to be angry. And we've got to fight together. And what does that mean when we say fight together? Let's start with the soul level. Let's start with raising the level of consciousness around as many of us as we can so we can connect and try to understand what the hell we're going to do. Have a great day, everybody. A big week ahead on the podcast in terms of the episodes that we've got coming up. We're going to continue to drill down on some of the nuanced aspects of the major issues we've continued to cover, be it healthcare, be it housing, the budget. We're going to take a look at a couple of specific issues on the budgetary side, a whole bunch more. It's Bartholomew Town, Rhode Island's podcast of record. Talk soon.
Hey, thanks for stopping by Bartholomew Town. For more content, follow me on Instagram at Bill Bartholomew.